Welcome to Resiliency Redefined. I'm your host, Robyne, and I am thrilled to share with you information about resiliency, well-being, performance, education, business, parenting, and everything in between. I'm committed to joining you each week to talk about these big ideas and bring them into action, habits, tools, strategies, tactics that allow us to finally uncover what it takes to truly be well. And I'm just so excited that you're here. So in today's episode of Resiliency Redefined, I had the opportunity to interview Mandy Gill. Now, this is a woman who is high octane energy. She had an author, an endurance athlete, a former broadcaster. She built an app. This woman is doing a lot of things, and she gave us a sneak peek into some of the practices and ideas she uses to prosper and factor in about resiliency. It was a great episode. I'm so glad you're here to listen to it. And also, too, in the spirit of the world as we live in, this isn't perfect. So you're going to hear puppies barking. You're going to hear her West Coast puppies barking, and there might be a little visit by Navy and Memphis who decided to jump in as well with some barking. So be warned, there is some puppy barking, but it's all for good. I'm so glad you're here. Mandy is going to help see the value and what those setbacks mean for our big future. So I'm glad you're here. And without further ado, let's dive into this episode. So this is a conversation with Mandy that I have been looking forward to for, years in the making. Mandy, welcome to Resiliency Redefined. I'm so glad that you're here.
It is such a joy to be invited and to have this conversation with you. And I've gotten to I feel like you are a mentor in many ways through all of the things that you bring to every individual that you get to connect with. So it's a genuine joy on this end as well to be invited and to just, chat about life.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for those kind words. And Mandy, I remember when our paths first crossed, we were in Vancouver and you were this like ball of energy, of goodness as the MC at an event. And I remember just being, first of all, you were wearing sneakers while you were on stage. So I'm like, clearly we're meant to have conversations because that always is a sign for me. And also to just that you bring such beautiful energy in all of the spaces that you show up in. So I just want to just recognize how it's just so admirable how you bring this positive energy where you go. So thank you for that. And for folks who haven't had a chance to connect with you before, Mandy, can you tell us just a wee bit about the good work that you do, and tell us a little bit about what parts of the story you wish to share?
I think a lot of that that good energy comes from hard times, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really beautiful to be able to have this conversation and just to say, it's one thing to be perceived as, which is like at its core, even still today, my best friend is like, I really didn't like you when I first met you because I wondered if all of that could be real.
Yes. Yeah.
And she's
Yeah.
like, but then I got to know you for about 6 months and this is
Yeah.
you. And none of that came to be until realizing that we can get through the hardships in life. We can get through the setbacks. And truly, we only have one life to live. And so how can we reframe that to make it the best possible opportunity? So thank you for that warm welcome. And also just, I think a large part of that energy comes from when I used to do morning show radio and I would wake up at 2:30 in the morning and be in the station for 3:30, ready to wake up a city of 3 million people. And, and you just, you get in the groove of just making sure that you want to connect with people and learn what interests them. And so I use that example because I think that's where a lot of the energy comes from. I'm like, oh, it's already 5 a.m. in the morning. Geez, I got to get up, get at it.
Yep.
So that's probably a
Wow.
habit.
I love that. Yes. I love it. What a useful habit. What a useful habit to have. So, Mandy, I'm so mindful that there's so many different dimensions of the work that you get to do. You wrote in a remarkable book on resiliency. So, congratulations on your book on resiliency. I know you are keynoting. I know that you've had your touch in technology. Like there's so many different parts of what Mandy gets to do. And the thread that I would just love to pull on that you already shared was that piece around you have one life to live. And this idea about reframing and the authenticity about showing up as yourself and knowing that that part of who you are and what you're about has experienced adversity and that is part of your story. It's not the whole story, it's part of your story. And can you just tell us a little bit about that, about bringing all those different parts of your work into in such a way that's just so relatable and it's just so useful for people to hear about and get to know you?
Totally. And it's funny as you make that introduction, sometimes I go, and I don't know if you ever feel this as well, but you're like, oh yeah, that's me. Those are things that I've achieved, right?
Oh, yeah, I did that. Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
listening to him like, wow, she sounds wonderful. Yeah, it's like, oh, I've done this. That's right. And I really do think that a large part of it came from my parents would have separated when I was 5, my sister was 3. And in that moment, I remember, like, as a 5-year-old, kind of feeling like my world had just like crashed, right? I wanted to take
Yeah.
care of mom. I wanted to make sure dad was okay, all of these pieces, my sister. And so I grew up fast.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
realized that if I could get through that time, which obviously we did as a family, mom and dad are both remarried. The family gets along wonderful. We all go on trips together, stepmom, stepdad,
Wow.
the whole shebang. And I was like, if I can get through that, when I have very minimal resources as a 5-year-old to figure out where those are, things that happen in life are probably going to be a little bit easier than that. And so that reframe happened for me very young, but again, from like a way of growing quite quickly. Not to say that everything from that point forward, creating the app Hooked on Healthy Habits to help clients with their habit development
Yes.
was not difficult, or losing my job in broadcasting in 2012 when I literally went to the CEO and I was like, you don't want to let me go. If you let me go, you can't hire me back. Long story short, it was one of the best things that happened. And what I learned from those moments is there's way greater opportunity than sometimes what we are able to see. But if we just trust that process, if we recognize, that resiliency, I mean, adverse, like things are going to happen regardless of how much control we
Yes.
think we have. And I think that's one of the biggest jokes, whatever higher power you want to
Yeah.
believe in. I oftentimes say with my
Yep.
therapist that I've had for over 15 years, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plan. You know,
Yes.
like
Yes.
and here I talk to people about goal setting, but really you've got to have that reality that,
Yes.
you have a goal that you want to work towards, but there's going to be things that are not going to go as planned in the process of getting there.
Yeah.
So having that ability to be resilient. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And what I appreciate you're sharing there is this idea that, we kind of almost this idea about being like, rigid about the goal. Like we know what where we're trying to get to. So for example, as an endurance athlete, you are, doing a summit, you know where you're trying to get to, but you're flexible about how you get there because inevitably there's going to be setbacks. There's going to be, again, I'm imagining when you're doing those big climbs and those endurance pieces, there's going to be weather, there's going to be things outside of your control. Maybe your body isn't going to respond the way that you were hoping it was going to respond. So again, that idea of like having a solid idea of where you're going, but that flexibility. Mandy, you one of the variables I always love to find
Yes.
commonalities. Like when I meet someone, I always kind of look for like, hey, what's something that we have in common? Actually, a dear friend of mine, Stu, who's part of the Epic community, he does this activity as an icebreaker. And let me just say, icebreakers make me
Mhm.
nauseous. Like I do not love when anyone says, "Oh, we're going to do an icebreaker." Usually, I run to find more coffee. But he did this icebreaker where he said to the person next to you, find 5 things that you have in common. And it's not like, oh, look, you have, feet. I have feet. Look, we have feet, or we both have a birthday. Like literally, like take a second, dive deep
Ooh.
and find things in common. And one of the things that I keep finding in common with women that I admire is this like reinvention within their careers. So when you shared that, here you were kind of pulled out of a career that you were clearly excelling at, people tuned in every morning to hear you. And then all of a sudden you have this like experience where you are pulled out of your career. And some of us, choose to leave certain careers, but there always seems to be this common thread about, wow, there was this hard thing. It kind of rocked me to the core, but it changed the trajectory. And now I get to do this. Right? So tell me more about what's that experience like? Because it's something I just find is that commonality with so many admirable women have had this big interrupt, so to speak, in their
Oh,
careers.
you hit the nail on the head there, really. Like it's just it's such a powerful. I apologize if you can hear the doggies. They're in the
The
background.
dogs are
Okay, good.
welcome.
Thank you.
Puppies are always welcome. Mandy, they are always
They're
welcome.
talking to the garbage truck right now. It's a very important day.
Yes.
Tuesdays.
Yes. They're defending the land.
Yes.
They're defending the land. Yes,
Oh
I get
gosh.
it.
Thank you for being welcoming to that because my goodness,
Of
it
course.
gets chaotic
Yes.
here. But
I love it.
speaking of chaotic, I will say that when I think of that pivotal moment, one of my biggest things came down to like my greater why when I was let go from that position, and understanding that it actually wasn't a reflection on myself. I think so quickly we take things personal. It's so easy to be like, well, I wasn't doing enough. And one of the greatest gifts that I was ever given in my career was the education behind going to bed every night and saying, my best is more than enough. I know that if I have done that, that came to me when I was, building the app, that came to me when I learned about keynote speaking and that actually being a career, like I was like, I want to do more, I want to do more. And then you realize you are human and your best is more than enough. And with that being said, I had a mortgage to pay, and it was my first mortgage, and I was like, I've got responsibilities. I need to pivot quickly. And so I really honed into, what other people had shared that they had seen within my own talents, because I think oftentimes it's really hard to have that self-reflection. And, to think that you can go from like this incredibly prestigious job where, you're interviewing Lady Gaga, Rihanna, some of the best
Yes.
names that, we can come across in top 40. And then to be like, and sorry, I don't have a job anymore. But then to think something greater can be out there. And I think really that reflection of just people that are wonderful and close in my circle that were like, oh, no, no, no. There is many talents here that you have got, and let us help you see them. And from that in 2012, I built a business, and really kind of, it lends me the opportunity to be in this incredible conversation with you right now. Because if I would have just kept knocking on doors in the broadcast world, I probably wouldn't have had this. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate so many pieces of what you just shared, especially that notion of like being able to like almost like borrow from other people how they see you with your skills and your gifts and your talents, and helping you almost like co-create and imagine what's possible, because I do think we become very comfortable in our identities that we are able to have,
Yes.
right? You are comfortable in your identity as a broadcaster, you're comfortable in this identity, and then all of a sudden the universe says, hey, I got something bigger and better, but at the time it doesn't feel like it's bigger and better, and we internalize that. That's so well said. And if you reflecting back on, again, you've had many different comebacks and different challenges that you've been able to navigate, like personally and professionally. When you think about like, how does Mandy like build her day by design to be resourced enough to be able to essentially weather whatever comes your way?
Ooh.
Like, I'm curious for the people who are listening to be like, yeah, well, that's Mandy. Mandy's a superstar. No wonder she's able to do those things. And so often when people look at some of, for example, my experiences, they're like, oh, it's easy for you. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's probably one of the biggest
Yes.
misconceptions. I studied resiliency because for the longest time I thought I had none,
I hear
right? Like
you.
we and so I'm like, "Oh, no, there's nothing special about what I do." It's the way I put the ingredients of my day together that make it possible. So I'm so curious if you would share with us, how Mandy by design builds her every day so that way she is able to bounce back and again have all these new
And now I
experiences.
wanna pivot that from, like, my interview style because 'cause I'm like, "I
Yeah.
wanna know about yours."
Yeah. We can do both. We
Okay,
can do both. We
I
can make
would
it up
love
as we go
that.
along. Yes. Yeah.
By design, and I'm not gonna say any of it is easy, but every single morning,
Yeah.
I am out running in the trails with my dogs. And oh, good,
Yeah.
we've got dogs on
Yeah.
both end here. This is
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. Oh, Navy would like to introduce herself to your puppies. She's like, "Hi, I'm a 5-month-old chocolate lab from Peterborough, Ontario." Yeah, and she likes biscuits. Oh, and Navy and
And
Memphis
no,
are
you
down
know what?
here.
This podcast is like an orchestrating. Yeah, we're both.
I love it. I
Oh,
love it.
hi,
Yes.
sweetheart.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's looking for you, Mandy. He's
thanks,
looking for your
sweetheart.
puppies. Memphis is like,
We're a
"Yeah,
little
yeah,
across
they're
the
all here
country
for you."
here, but Potato and Seamus on the other end here say hi. Um, so interestingly enough, where I'm going to go with, setting up my day for success, by design,
Yes.
is getting okay. So we adopted two rescue pups from Qatar. They
Yes.
love to run. I had a Bernese
Yeah.
before I got our Salukis. Salukis are runners.
Yes.
Thank goodness they came to a
Yeah.
family that loves to run. But with
Loves to
saying
run.
that, every single morning we are out in the trails. I meet a group of incredible four girlfriends and three other dogs.
Yeah.
So there is five and five. Like we are just out there. We are running in the
Yeah.
trails um, with headlamps on, to be totally honest, because unless
Yes.
it's really
Yeah.
right around summer solstice, it's pretty much dark.
Yeah.
And I get out there for an hour
Yes.
and a half in the morning and I am in nature and I am
Wow.
connecting.
Yeah.
My dogs are getting exercise. If I'm on the road for an event, it is so imperative to me, regardless of the matter, that I keep that for myself, which actually to me
Yes.
means how much I enjoy it as well. And so it's not
Yes.
necessarily for just, like good, get the fur kids to sleep for the rest of the day, while I can
Yes.
be focused and have a lot of clarity. And that actually came to me while I was writing my book because I was like, oh no, like they're driving me bananas. But with saying that, I myself absolutely loved that time in nature for that first 90 minutes of the day. There's no checking a cell phone, there's no emails coming in. I'm on Pacific Standard Time, even though half of, the people that I get to work with,
The world is
yes, and it's
going.
like,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
should be looking at this or you should and I'm like, no. This is my time. And so that is incredibly important to me. It helps me to start my day truly with already feeling accomplished.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that idea about recognizing this is what works for me.
Yes.
And again, if someone says to me, "Okay, Robin, you have to, go run in the woods with a headlamp and all the puppies," I would be like, "Okay, that actually might be a lot for me
Yes.
to navigate. That might not be my thing," which again, I love that that's for you. And what I'm hearing is you have found something that when I get this non-negotiable locked
Oh,
in, it allows me the freedom to do the rest of my
completely.
day. And one of the things that I actively encourage other people to think about is we can be like inspired by other people about what they do and how they build their day. The real golden ticket is figuring out what works for you. And I'm sure you've created this as such a routine and a ritual that if you didn't do it, you would miss it. So it's easy to do in the sense of, yes, it takes discipline, but it becomes something that like it's just means so much to you that you wouldn't want to miss
Absolutely,
it.
and you lend a really good
Yeah.
point there, and I think that's most important. Um, I think we know movement of any kind is really good for the mind, the body, and the soul. And
Yes.
it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be running. It doesn't have to be in company. It can look whatever shape or form or pace or length of time, like however you give back to you is really what matters. And I can recognize that, from my background of how much I love athletics, it is on a very different
Yes.
spectrum. And I think a lot of times
Yeah.
it scares people because it's not relatable.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful and it's inspiring, but it's like, sorry, you do what? And I'm like, half the time I forget to put a sports bra on. Like, there's the honest answer. I'm
Yes.
lucky if I have both shoes done up with
Yes.
laces on,
Yeah.
but it doesn't look perfect. But neither does anyone else's setup for their success. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's just that for me, it feels like this permission slip that maybe we didn't realize we needed that, whatever makes sense for you. And, what I'm when you're sharing that, it reminds me of again, I had a pediatrician once when I was like explaining a situation with the babies and again, the babies who are now like 21, 19, and 17. So this was like olden days almost. And I remember being like, okay, this is how I'm doing this, but I'm concerned, and then the pediatrician said to me, he's like, "Is it
Mm.
working?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "Okay, so if you didn't have to explain it to anybody else in the world, and it's just something that stayed within your family unit, that this is just the way that you did it, and it wasn't harming anyone else, but this is just the way you did it, and you didn't have to explain it, would you feel that like worry or that like, am I doing it right?" And I'm like, "No, because I know it's working. The babies sleep through the night if I do this." And then he's like, "If it works, then just keep doing it and don't worry about what it looks like to other people." And I remember again, that felt like a permission slip, that it just gives ourselves this almost this freedom to figure out what works for you. You don't have to explain it to anybody else. You don't have to justify it to anybody else. As long as it's not doing harm to other, then you just do you. And I love that you do it in your imperfect way, which again is remarkable. I also know that there's something on a psychological level when we are able to have those key ingredients that you just described. You're in nature, you're in community, there's the consistency, the action, the movement. Like those are just like the ingredients for
Yeah.
Mandy to have a great
Yeah, you
day.
said it perfectly.
Yeah.
And what a good pediatrician,
Yeah.
by the way. I just want to point that out. Like, that is so powerful. Like we don't have to be by the book. We're always told when you're becoming parents, there's no perfect, like here's a book of how to do it great. And I feel like that pediatrician lives that message.
Yeah,
So valuable.
100%, and you know what? Again, shout out to Doctor Peter Hughes, who's since retired. We both it was funny, my kids aged out and he aged out at
Oh,
the same time in terms of no longer having a pediatrician, and he retired. But I recall one time, and this was actually around it was around sleep behavior, and I know there's lots of different opinions on sleep, and I remember saying it's like, but they said if I held Ava and that's how she fell asleep, that, like she wouldn't be able to sleep by herself, she wouldn't have sleep independence and all these things, and I remember that moment he said, "Yeah, but Robin, doesn't it feel good to
oh,
hold your baby? Like, let that be something." He's like, "If that's how she feels safe in the world to fall asleep," he said, "That's pretty cool that there's a place where, this little one who's gone through a
yeah.
lot, is able to find rest, and it's okay to just enjoy the moment of what it feels like to hold your baby. We don't have to worry about sleep training in the future
No.
and all that kind of stuff. Just enjoy the moment." And what I think so often is when we think about
Mhm.
habits, when we think about, these routines, so often it's like with this eye on the horizon, which again, like we talked about at the top of the episode, it's important to know where we're going, but I just think sometimes we lose this idea of enjoying it,
Totally.
enjoying the process. And I know they often, talk about that, the journey is it. But I think in a lot of the personal development space, the emphasis has become on outcome. And sometimes we lose that piece, which you said so beautifully is the fact that yes, it's hard, but you enjoy it. Like this is the type of hard that you enjoy doing and it sets you
And I
up for
think you nailed
success.
something right there too, where something that I've lived with strongly since getting into athleticism is comparison steals joy.
Yeah.
The moment
Yes.
we compare to how someone else is sleep training their kid, we can educate ourselves, we can learn, or like, hey, I'd love to do what Dr. Robin does every single morning because she's incredibly successful and I want to learn how to be just like her. And it's like we can
Yeah.
learn and we can get these little nuggets that will help impact our lives. But the reason why we're here on this earth is because every one of us is unique. And there's different things that are going to make us tick
Yes.
and be motivated or
Yeah.
just feel that level of setup for success of whatever that looks like for you. And
Yeah.
I think just the term like
Yeah.
comparison steals joy is it's resonated with me for probably over a decade because we can in our society where everything is going when we look at outcomes, right? How did they get this? How did they get this faster? I am not the fastest to
Yeah.
come through any ultra marathon race. I'm probably in the back half. But hey, I am out there smiling ear to ear, having the best experience of my
Yeah.
life. And that's all that
Yeah.
matters to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's so beautifully said. And it reminds me of that kind of notion where, anyone who's participating in anything isn't going to judge you, right? So, for example, the business owner isn't going to judge you when you come up with this new idea for your app, right? Another writer is never going to
Oh,
judge you for you putting your thoughts down in your book about resiliency. It's the people who like aren't in it who seem to have a lot of
yes.
opinions. But, you go to the gym and I know sometimes people are like, "Oh, gyms are, really toxic places." It's just like if you actually are in there, it's actually some of the most
Oh,
helpful, lovely people you'll ever meet.
absolutely.
Or, when I go to different cities and I go out for my morning walk, like I say hello to usually the dogs first and then the owner when I'm going on the trail. Because based on that exchange, I decide whether or not I want to interact with
Understood.
their human. But yes, but it's like some of the nicest people I've ever met are like the people out there doing the thing. And so, that fear of comparison or getting criticism or other people having an opinion, it's the people that are doing the thing, I don't think are the ones that are ever going to turn around and be like, "Hey, Robin,
Yeah.
Mandy, what are you two doing?" It's like, "Hey, oh my gosh, like how do we cheer each other on and lift
And
each
that
other
is
up?"
what is so beautiful.
So,
And I have to say, I think when you do find that that space of realizing, like it takes a lot of work to get to wherever anyone is listening in this podcast to be in this exact moment, you
yeah.
realize how much. I was having a conversation yesterday. It was with a previous keynote speaker from an event 2 weeks ago, and he's like, "You seem like you just want to like cheer me on, and I'm trying to understand
Yeah.
this." And I'm like, You played in the NFL. Like, how can like that?
Yeah.
How somebody of that accord, like anybody deserves to be cheered on. If you're doing something that speaks to your soul,
100%.
like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you're in
Yeah.
tryouts or it doesn't matter if you have won a Super Bowl, which was in his title. And I'm like, you need to be cheered on. You want to get on a
Yes.
bicycle? You go get on
Yes.
that bike and I'm going to cheer you on. Like it is so beautiful to lift each other up from that place. So,
Yeah, and I love that. And I love sport and athleticism because of that idea of celebrating each other out loud. And I think very much, yes, I'm sure it's in arts and in the music, but to me, just in my ecosystem, cheering each other out loud has been something that sport has been really influential. And if I can share a
please,
story with you
yeah.
just really briefly, I remember my kiddos, we were out visiting some family out west where we have, and we went to my cousin's daughter's ringette game, and my cousin Ben said, "Oh, we're gonna go. Do you want to come and watch Charlotte play this ringette game?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Obviously, yes, we're gonna come." And so the children and I went, and it was really special. And we know nothing about ringette, nothing. Like the boys and I and Ava were looking at each other like, "Do you know anything?" We're like, "I have nothing, like nothing." Right? We have no idea about the sport. But sure enough, Charlotte, she scores. And you would have thought that girl like won the Stanley Cup. Like my three kids jumped up like hooligans. They were banging the glass, they were hollering, and like, because that's what they do. Anytime anyone, like, we just cheer the heck out of each other in this household. And what was so special, Mandy, is that so, Charlotte, obviously, I think she was probably
Yeah.
slightly embarrassed, but
Yeah.
also kind of loved it because it's just, yeah, these are very large people. My kids are so tall and they're banging on the glass being hooligans. Anyway, but what was so special is all the other parents and supporters in the stands were kind of looking at us like, who are these people? And then of course Ben's like, oh, that's my cousin from Ontario, right? So it was no big deal. But the next little player on the opposite team scores a goal. And I kid you not, she literally came and skated right in front of the boards where my kids were. And my kids like looked at each other and then they just freaked out, right? They just freaked out and they started cheering on for
I
this other little
love
girl who was
this.
on the other team just because this
This
is
is what
this
you
is
do.
this is how we cheer out loud. And I remember having a moment as a parent just being like, I love that my children's go-to is to cheer out loud for each other. So again, when I saw you on stage in Vancouver, like, I'm cheering out loud because I just think that we need to celebrate each other, because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of negativity, and, being able to cheer each other out loud, I think is pretty
I
special, and
love
that's something that
this.
you do beautifully
Oh,
as well,
thank you.
I
And I
find.
get to see all of the incredible things that you bring, to the forefront, book wise, on the stage, like getting to watch your keynote. The emotion behind that was so beautiful and how much resonated. And I just have to say, something that I took away from training in the trails for ultra trail running
Yeah.
is I did this past weekend while I'm training for an upcoming race, is to smile. And so the moment
Yeah.
that I smile, I realize like my whole, like it was 31 degrees Celsius. I was at the tail end of the day. I couldn't wait to be done the next amount of
Yeah.
kilometers. I've got my husband far ahead of me and I'm like trying to keep up, and
Yeah.
water's getting short. And I'm like, smile. And
Wow.
the amount of
Beautiful.
change that happens in my brain, even though I'm kind of like forcing it, I'll be honest with you, what follows
Yeah.
after that is that everything kind of dissipates. Like the discomfort, if there is some, like if we want to talk adversity, that's probably a whole other podcast
Yeah.
because,
Yes.
that is,
Yeah.
it's a big topic of like the things that you kind of go through where you're like, sorry, I'm supposed to, run through the night and do all these things again by choice. But where I come from is the energy of what that gives my body compared to what cheering does,
Yeah.
from like the example of your incredible family cheering on, family and then a complete stranger. Let's be honest. Like we got to think of like the amount of smiles that must have given people in the stands. Like it's something so little. And I got to be honest with you, it's free.
It's so free. Yes.
Like we
Yeah.
have these tools
Absolutely.
that we have ability to kind of reframe our minds, but we just have to uncover that and take that, just and again, teaching that habit to recognize when you're in the dumps of it all, just force a smile here for 2 minutes. See what it does for you. See what it does. If it doesn't work,
Yeah.
that's okay. Let's try something else. But if it does, great. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. I absolutely love that, and I can like you painted such a good picture, like, I can see you
Oh.
in that moment being like, "Okay, what do I have at my disposal right now to get through this?" It's like, "Okay, well, at least I will smile my way
Yeah.
through this discomfort," right? I'm going to, just find a way to show up in it. That's beautiful. So, Mandy, there's one little activity I'd love to do at the end of my episodes, and I'd love to share. We call it the wellness
Okay.
relay, where we pass a question on. So, totally inspired by Stephen Bartlett and his beautiful work that he does with Diary CEO, where they leave a question behind. And the question that was actually left behind, and again, the guest never knows who they're
Okay.
leaving the question for. The question that left behind for you, Mandy, and then the next ask will be, would you like to leave a question for the next person? Keep the relay going, is what is a boundary that you've established that has served you really well? What is a boundary that perhaps you've established personally or professionally that has actually like maybe surprised you with serving you really well?
I there's something that's coming to me, and the word is respect.
Oh, I love that.
So I'm just gonna like, without thinking. Oftentimes I'm like, say the
Yeah.
first thing that's on
Yeah.
your mind. And
Yeah.
coming from being a female who is, determined to be of service to
Yes.
people's success, I think that there can be a lot of questioning without question, and as people should. But what I have done in my core, because this is literally who I want to be of service to in this world, is to answer that question of like, what makes me most happy about this? And it's truly seeing others succeed. And it's helping them to, and I'll go back to the book, reset with resilience and have that ability when things go sideways to realize that there is greatness at the end of it. We can get to it. Those are roadblocks. And um, there's been respect for myself in really honing into what I know I love so much about what I get to do. There's been respect of what I have done from the level of work. And there's been respect that then, interestingly, has obviously come from everybody else to be like, geez, you can make this a career. This is, and I'm like, I get to call this a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I love
sorry as I
that.
rolled
I
off the
love
tongue
that.
there, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's perfect.
And
Yeah. No, and
speaking of
I love that.
respect, I just have to mention quickly, I didn't get to ask you what your habit was for the morning of stacking for success. So out of respect, I would like to just
Oh,
ask you quickly, without
yeah.
taking too much time, what is it for you that sets you up for
Yeah.
success in the day for everyone listening?
There you go, man. Well, thank you for circling back, and I do really honor and I love that notion for you, the boundary about self-respect and other respect. Like that's beautifully said. So thank you for sharing. So similar to yours, minus the probably the kilometers. I love to start my day with a morning walk, and for me, steady state cardio is just a chance for me to like take the puppies out for a walk, collect my thoughts, set the intentions for the day, say some prayers while I'm out there, and again, whether it's minus 40 and I'm still in my pajamas underneath my big parka, or if I'm, it's summer and I'm already in my my kind of workout gear for the day, whatever it might be. It's just I start my day outdoors and just have that time to reflect. And so for me, one of the things that I've learned is steady state cardio has just been like a really beautiful way to quiet my nervous system. And there was a season when I loved to run, and there was a season when I loved to lift heavy things, and there was a season when I loved to sleep in and ignore life as well. And this is the season where that morning walk, wherever I go, it's something that's accessible to me when I'm traveling. Yeah, so that thank you for asking. For me, it's the morning walk is where I get to go
Beautiful.
for me.
Beautiful. And I love that you said
Yeah. So
season.
Mandy, I quite.
I think that that is really
Oh yeah.
beautiful that you
Yes.
mentioned that because seasons can last for
Yeah.
however long they are meant to, but it does change throughout
That's
life.
right.
And thank you for sharing this.
Oh, well, thank you. And just again, there's no pressure, but if there's a question that you want to leave, you also can. You will not be the only one who's ever like texted it to me after. So I've had people say, "Robyne, you put me on the spot, and I didn't know what to say." So feel free. You can email me after or text me after. But if you do have it top of mind, you're welcome to share. If not, that's okay
I'm
too.
going to ask the next guest, what is the thing that scared you most, but you said yes anyways? And what was the
Oh,
outcome?
it's so
That's a
good.
two-part question, but, like, if it's okay,
I love it.
I can't wait to
Yeah.
listen to whoever gets asked this and what
Yeah.
their answer is.
Oh yeah. And knowing who it is, oh my good, that's gonna be a juicy
Oh,
response. I
okay,
know
good.
she's gonna be it's gonna be good. So I will make sure to circle that together so that you hear that because, I know who you will be asked that question will be asked to, and I think it's gonna be a
Wonderful.
treat. So Mandy, thank you, thank you. And, again, thank you for the gift of your time. Thank you for your
Yeah,
puppies, for giving us a little bit of, in the middle, kind of just joy of the fact that this isn't meant to be perfect. This is just meant to be real, and you are as real and just amazing.
vice
So
versa.
thank you for spending time with us, and I hope this is the first of many visits on Resiliency Redefined. So
Absolutely. Thank
thanks for
you,
being
and
here.
it has been a joy to watch you in your element as you've given keynotes and everything you do on social media and just how you impact the community. So, for everything that you're doing on this side here, all the way on the west coast of Canada, there's so much love. So, I know how many lives have been impacted from your message, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Mandy, and thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you again next time. Thank you for spending time with this podcast episode today. I hope you found something helpful in Resiliency Redefined. Please feel free to share it with somebody who you might think could benefit. Maybe there was something useful, something in particular that you think you could pay forward. Also, if you have a moment, please feel free to rate and review this podcast wherever you like to listen to your podcast. It means the world to me. And again, thanks for your time. Thank you for your interest. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.